Hi, you guys. Our next guest is Amanda Sauceda. And Amanda is a registered dietitian nutritionist who specializes in mindfulness and gut health. Amanda quickly realized that gut health is more than digestion or the food we eat. It is also about honoring our gut feelings. This is why she created her signature mindful gut method, which is a holistic way of helping people to find their gut friendly foods and lifestyle. Amanda was also on the first episode ever of my podcast, which is super cool. Welcome, Amanda.
I'm glad to be back in like a different way.
Yay.
It's fun.
I know, it's amazing. I'm so excited to have you share your knowledge with people because I think that gut health is confusing for people. You
Yes.
know.
The more you're like, I mean, we could just even start there. The more I got into it, I think the more people had the question of like, what does gut health even mean?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to talk about that more? Like, what does
Yeah.
it mean?
Yeah. And yeah, like let's just pause and like, what does gut health even mean? I think that's a really good question. And one that kind of like my answer kind of came about after working with people on their gut health and then just like kind of being more mindful of myself and like what gut meant to me. And so after some time, I realized that gut health kind of has like three facets to it. Okay. So, first, like facet or area of gut health that I think most of us think of. Okay. I'm going to give you an example, a visual. You probably don't think of this visual, but just go with me. Okay. So, like, let's say you eat corn and like 2 days later, you see it like pop up again, like make a reappearance in your poop. That is okay. Poop is like a big indicator of like how our gut is going and looks at one of the biggest areas of gut health, which is your digestion. How are we digesting and breaking down our food? How are we absorbing the nutrients from our food? And then the final phase of digestion is pooping, and how are we eliminating the waste, which is what that is. So digestion covers quite a bit, and you see a lot of people focus solely on digestion, like bloating and gassiness and all of those other sometimes not so pleasant things that can come along with digestion. So that's one part of it. The other part of it is the another area that's starting to get more traction, which is the microbiome. With in that kind of also is like, okay, well, what is the micro what does the microbiome mean? So in our large intestine, in our gut, we have these bacteria, these little gut bugs that naturally live there. We're still learning like what they do. If you've ever taken an antibiotic and you've noticed like your stomach didn't feel well, maybe your pooping wasn't so great. This is because the antibiotic is having an effect on your microbiome too. And so it's really interesting to see what exactly those gut bugs do. And we're seeing things helping with like mood, metabolism, blood sugar, vitamins. And so it's just really interesting to look at the microbiome. And then the third area that I don't think gets enough love with what gut health is really honoring your gut feelings, that inner instinct, that inner wisdom that we all have that we can sometimes be disconnected from, as we get older and life happens. 2020 happens and yeah, I think that's also the other part of gut health is listening to those gut feelings, listening to that inner instinct, and staying in alignment. Because what I found is that when we're not in alignment, when we're not speaking our truth, for example, that can physically sometimes manifest as, issues with like literally having gut problems. Maybe they're constipated because they're literally and figuratively like holding things in. And so I think that's the other area of gut health that we need to talk more about is that inner instinct.
I love that because something I focus on a lot with my clients is
Yeah.
listening to their intuition and using their body to
Yeah.
understand when their intuition is talking to them. And that's
Mhm.
exactly what you just said. It's like those gut feelings are that's our intuition,
Yeah.
and the mind and the body are directly linked. And
Mhm.
I want to talk about more about what mindfulness practices you give to your clients to
Yeah.
incorporate that, but also maybe we can talk about the gut brain. Is it like the gut brain connection they call it? Like
Yeah.
our gut is our second brain, right?
Yes. Yeah. So, okay, so the first, so you asked like mindfulness practices, right? That I'll give to my clients.
Yeah, or maybe explain the gut brain connection first, and
Right.
then we
Okay.
can dive into that if that's okay.
Yeah, yeah, no, no.
Cool.
Okay, so I like to think of the gut brain connection. Think of it like a telephone. Like, yeah, like playing telephone. You can make a call and you can also take a call. It goes both ways. And so that means how you feel mentally, like up top your brain can impact your gut physically, and the vice versa can also be said. How your gut feels physically can impact your mood and how you think up there. So it's this bidirectional highway or telephone pole, however you kind of want to think about it. It relays messages in both directions. And what that means to you is that you can also work on your gut by working on mindfulness, like bringing some attention to how we're feeling. Working on your gut health doesn't just have to mean eating fruits and vegetables, which is like fiber, which it is very important. Let me just say that right there. That in of itself is hard enough to make sure we're eating enough fruits and veggies, but it can also mean that food doesn't even necessarily need to be the only part of the equation. And that's where those mindfulness practices can come in, because when we start to work on things up top, we can start to have a direct connection to our gut. And this is because of the gut brain connection. And one of the things that connects that is the vagus nerve. And so the vagus nerve is this bidirectional nerve that is playing a role with how they're talking to each other.
Hmm. Yeah, and I talk about that a lot. Like, because the vagus nerve
Mhm.
turns on the rest and digest, our
Yeah,
parasympathetic, which turns on digestion, right?
exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you definitely want to be in that rest and digest mode. And I think that also really overlooked is, if you've ever eaten really quickly because you're running from one thing to another, or have you ever, oh my God, I'm guilty of this sometimes. Like,
You're so cute.
you ever read emails like while you're eating?
Oh, like all the time. It's really
Right.
bad.
And
Yeah.
it's just like, have you ever gotten an email where it's like, oh man, I really need, like, it just like you feel like you need to really respond, and then your attention goes to that email and you're not even paying attention to how you're eating. You kind of just feel gross after, or maybe you feel like you didn't eat enough, or maybe you ate too much because you weren't in tune. It just can pull you in so many directions. And
Hmm.
so I think that is just like one example of how easily that rest and digest mode can be flipped on or off. It's just really easy to get distracted, unfortunately.
Totally. And like, regardless, we're all living in that fight or flight state most of the time,
Especially now.
especially now in
Yeah.
freaking 2020. Although this will air in 2021 and
Okay.
everything will be well because we're
Yeah.
in 2021, right? It's all going to go back to normal.
Yeah. Right. Um,
Okay. What mindfulness tools do you give to your clients to turn on that rest and digest state to
mhm.
get their gut feeling better and like to sync it all up?
Yeah. So I think the key part of mindfulness that I try to hit on that, and I'll tell you like some specific things that I'll recommend, but I want to say that bringing awareness to how we are feeling and to what we're thinking holds so much power and is the first step. And it is a difficult step because you don't know what you don't know, right? And so when we bring awareness, it helps to establish that baseline of how food is affecting you, how your mood is affecting you, how your choices, are whatever choices you've made in your life are impacting you. And so, some tools that I like to do to kind of like bring this awareness is, one is a food and mood journal, which I can give you guys a like sample food and mood journal, because I think that is like my number one tool, honestly, to help bring some awareness, because I kid you not, we forget what we eat 15 minutes like after we eat it. And
Mhm.
so one of the key parts, because obviously I'm a dietitian, is like food, right? And so I want to know, like, how are you eating? And it's so easy to forget what you ate. But food can have a huge impact, obviously, like on your gut and your digestion. And if you're having some gut, concerns, or if you're just wanting to optimize your health, we all need to start with a baseline, and that's what a food and mood journal can help with. So tracking what you're eating, and not necessarily worrying about like calories or your macros. Like that's not what it's about. It's more just like being aware of what you're eating, not so much like
Mhm.
numbers. I'm not huge on things like that. um, and then the mood part, because again, that gut brain connection. So kind of going back to the example of like reading emails while you're eating, like, are you stressed while you're eating? Oh, maybe that's why you feel like having some indigestion, because you weren't in that rest and digest mode. And so tracking, how you're feeling during your meal, tracking how you're feeling that day, tracking your sleep. Like, did you get good sleep? Did you feel rested when you woke up? Because sleep has an impact on hormones like ghrelin, which is a hormone that makes us feel hungry. And sometimes when we don't get enough sleep or good quality sleep, we might feel hungrier than normal because of this impact on that hormone. So it's just interesting to see that there's all these little pieces that can play a role. And so when we kind of start tracking them, you can start to kind of put those puzzle pieces together and start to pick up a pattern of how you're eating or what you're eating and how you're feeling and how your gut is feeling. So that's one big, like one of my most favorite tools.
I love that. And yeah, I mean, I feel like after a certain amount of time,
Yeah.
that's going to just be you're going to naturally be
Mhm.
eating intuitively, which is where we want to be. Like
Mhm.
I've experienced in my life, and through working with clients and stuff,
Yeah.
counting calories is oftentimes not good for your body image, or like again, that
Yeah.
stress state.
Yeah.
So then you'll start to eat intuitively, and then you're going to feel better about yourself. You're going to have a better body image, which is so important for just feeling good in your life. Like, such a beautiful tool. I love that. Do you have any other ones for us?
Yeah. Oh my God. I love what she said. Yeah. So another one too is breathing, just like the simple act of like breathing can be so helpful to put you in that rest and digest mode. So there's so many different techniques to learn about, but even just taking a few deep, like belly breaths, like so slow belly breaths before you start a meal can help like physically put you in that rest and digest mode. So breath work can be another tool that I like to have people do. We'll do a tool at the end. There's like a mindful eating activity that we'll walk you through at the end. That's another tool that I like to help, like to give people to do. And then other things that I think can be really helpful are journaling, just like journaling how you're feeling, not necessarily like what you're eating. Journaling how you're feeling. Therapy, I think, doesn't get enough love as well. I think therapy can be really, really helpful to whatever form of therapy that might mean. Maybe it's talk therapy, maybe it's yoga therapy, dancing, like just like really like something very physical to put you back into your body to kind of put things back into alignment. So it's really finding what works for you. And I think that is where it needs to start. Maybe food and mood journal is my favorite thing, but maybe it doesn't work for you. And so I really always try to encourage people to be curious about trying different tools and see what resonates with them, because that's what's going to make it stick and
Mhm.
what's going to make it work if they actually enjoy what they're doing or find benefit.
Totally. Yeah. If you don't like something, you're not going to stick with it. It's just
Exactly. Yeah.
making it way too hard on yourself.
Mhm.
Well, I would love, before we go into your fun little activity,
Yeah.
for you to maybe just give people, you talked a little bit about fiber, but just like a little bit of the actual things that they can eat to promote their gut health in the year to come.
Yes.
Forever.
Yeah.
Forever and ever.
Forever and ever. Forever and ever, the thing that will never change, because I feel like nutrition is always evolving and we're always learning. The one piece of advice that never changes is eating fruits and vegetables. Like I think um I sound like a broken record when I say that, but because it's just that powerful, and I mean, and that's because of the fiber in there, but also all the vitamins and minerals you find. And so a tool that I like to help people visualize is, imagine if you ate imagine all your food that you ate yesterday. If you were to put it like on one big plate, and if you were to separate it into food groups, would half of your choices be fruits and veggies? If they are, like you're doing great. And if there's not, there's room for improvement. So I think that's like another easy way to kind of check in. So fruits and veggies, fermented foods is another F. I guess fruits, well, veggies is an F, but yeah.
Veggies.
Fermented foods is another one. That's going to help give us those good gut bugs for our microbiome. So there's so many different fermented foods out there that you can have. You can do sauerkraut, kimchi, miso, kefir, yogurt. You can try. I've had clients experiment making their own, and I personally haven't gotten to that level yet. Just because I'm like, oh man, it scares me. I don't know why. Anyways.
Yeah. It just sounds daunting if you haven't done it. It's like one of those things. It's like once you do it, it's probably really easy, but it's kind of like I haven't done it yet. Yeah.
I had a friend who's a dietitian show me how she makes her own yogurt in the Instant Pot. And it was so simple. It was like you take the starter and you take the whole milk and you just like let it ferment, and like days later you're presented with yogurt. I'm like, why can't I have an Instant Pot? Like,
yeah,
it'd be that easy.
I do feel like yogurt would make me nervous. I feel like doing pickles or like cabbage would be like yogurt would scare me a little bit, but I don't eat dairy anyway, so maybe that's why.
Yeah. Oh, but there's like a really a cool recipe that I saw for a coconut yogurt.
Ooh.
Yeah, where you take coconut milk, and it's the same thing, just with coconut milk, and you add the starter, whatever the starter is. Like you can break open a probiotic and sprinkle it in there, and you let it ferment, and then you make your own. Because coconut yogurt can be really expensive.
Yeah, I buy cashew yogurt, and I'm like, this is expensive, but it's so good.
Yeah. Oh, you have to tell me what brand you like, because I feel like I'm always trying to find different ones.
Oh yeah. Wait, I want to think of it so everyone can hear it.
Yeah.
But I can't remember. I'll tell you.
Okay.
And you guys, I'll link it on the landing page.
I feel like sometimes with non-dairy yogurts, I always like want something more with like a creamier texture.
Oh, this stuff is good.
Is it
really good? Yeah.
Okay, yeah. When you think of it, you're gonna have to share it with everybody.
Yeah, I will.
So fermented foods is another great way to get in those good gut bugs, or even kombucha is another really yummy thing that you can add into your everyday life. So fermented foods, fruits and veggies, you can add a probiotic. So if you want to do like a supplement, you can do a supplement probiotic, or get your probiotics with the foods that you're eating, the fermented veggies or fermented whatever you're having. And I think, trying to think of some other, like those are the biggies, because even that, just like those two things can be hard enough in of itself to do consistently, because that's the key, making sure you're eating these things consistently, really experimenting with different ones. And then the other thing isn't technically a food per se, but it is the thing that I find the most difficult no matter what client I saw. And what this thing is eating a variety of different foods. That, I think, is the thing I see most people across the board struggle with. And what do I mean by variety? Like getting a different variety of food groups. So like, fruit, veggie, protein, starch, whatever, but also getting different foods within that food group. So not just like, okay, I'm going to eat apple and kale and chicken, and like I'm getting all my food groups, but you're eating the same things. There's no one food, or there's no one set combination of food that's going to give you everything your body requires. And variety is what your gut loves. You want different variety of gut bugs, which means you need a different variety of foods. So like I said, not necessarily a food, but a thing that I find most lacking in everybody's diet, myself included.
Yeah, that's a great thing to bring up. And you hear that, but you don't really hear like the real meaning behind it. I think you just explained it so well. So thank you. Okay. Do you want to take us through your mindful eating exercise? I'm excited because she got me to get chocolate in the middle of the day.
Okay, so this is fun and an activity that I like to do. Sometimes I do this with my clients one-on-one, or I'll do this. I actually do this because I teach at a college, and I'll do this with my students. So it's a mindful eating activity, and I've done this millions of times. So if you want, I'm sure this is recorded, right? So they can pause this and come back to it. Go grab something. It can be anything you want it to be. This activity is traditionally done with chocolate. Actually, it's either traditionally done with chocolate or raisins. I don't know why raisin, but it's, yeah. Anyway. It's like the only time I eat raisins is like when I do that activity. So what you do is you're just going to take your food, whatever it happens to be, and I want you guys in the future now just to place it in your hand, okay? And what this activity, the goal of this activity is not to say this is how you're supposed to eat all the time. It's more about an exaggerated, like a mindful eating method. Okay, imagine you got dropped from Mars. This is the first time you've ever seen this food in your life. Okay, how would you describe that to someone? Like, Kelly, like how would you, like, I know what you have, but like how would you say, like how would you describe that food without saying, hey man, it's a piece of chocolate?
It's brown and
right, it's kind of
silky.
dark. Yeah, that's
There's
another.
something inside of the brown
Oh,
that's
I know,
like a
I saw
lighter
that.
brown. There's like
Yeah.
nuts in it. Yeah.
So the idea behind this is to start using your senses to help ground you into this whole eating experience. So using your sight, like describing what it is. Like I don't know if you remember these chocolates that I have, but it's in a green wrapper. It is small. It is also a sweet and mint, and like it's a mint flavor. Do you remember getting these after like you went to a restaurant? The
I
little
love those. They're so good. Yeah.
no, these are like the best thing ever. So what you're going to do after you use your site, I want you guys to start like to touch your food. So you can kind of play with it a little bit, like, and how would you describe what that food feels like? When's the last time you've, touched this food with the intent of just like trying to describe what that feels like? Is it soft? Is it smooth? Is it hard? Does it have a wrinkly texture? Is it like a bumpy texture? Or maybe like with your chocolate, I imagine it's like soft on the like bottom and top, but it's kind of bumpy along the sides because of the nuts.
And it's kind of bumpy on the bottom because of the nuts, but it's really smooth.
Mhm.
On top, it has little like lines in it.
Yeah. And it kind of makes you think like with that texture, am I going to notice that when I actually take a bite? Do I notice like the smoothness on one side, but the bumpiness on the other? So it's something to keep in mind. The next sense that you can use and I'm going to open my little candy, is smell. So like just take a second to smell your food. And as you smell it, two things to tune into. Do you notice any sensations in your mouth when you smell that food? Like, does your mouth start to water? Does you like start anticipating what it's going to taste like? Do you notice any memories that might come up when you smell that food? Because food, a lot of the times, isn't just about food, but it could be also like what this represents. And so like when I smell this chocolate, this is usually like my after lunch, like little chocolate, I guess. And so when I smell this chocolate, it kind of reminds me, okay, like now we're transitioning from lunch to starting to go back to work again. And that's what I think of, but I think of it in a pleasant way because it's like a nice transition. So it's really interesting the next time you eat too, even when you're not doing this type of activity, to tune into the thoughts that come up, because sometimes those thoughts aren't always pleasant. Sometimes you might have judgment that comes in, like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be eating this chocolate in the middle of the day because that's like bad. But are you a bad person because you ate chocolate in the middle of the day? Like, no, you're not. But sometimes these are some of like the things that run through, and this is the other part that I like to work with clients. it's not just about like how it makes your stomach feel, but like how you feel. Again, that brain gut connection. I got distracted. Okay.
No, so good. So good. And if anything, you're a better person for eating chocolate in the middle of the day. Let's be real.
I mean, yeah. Okay, so the next thing you're going to do before you take a legit bite, I usually have people just take like a small piece, let it sit on your tongue, like just close your mouth, let it sit on your tongue, and see if you notice anything different than how it would taste when you would normally eat it. Because normally you just don't let it sit there. You like go to town, right? I would.
Me too.
So I'm just going to place a little bit on my tongue and just like let it sit there. And then eventually I'm going to have to chew so you don't like choke.
It's really good to just like, ooh, mine has salt in it.
Oh, it does?
Yeah.
What's interesting is something I actually just noticed right now is I've actually never done this activity with this specific chocolate. So this chocolate has like the green mint in the middle as like sandwiched between two normal chocolate. I never noticed that I never taste the mint for a while until I chew it. It's interesting. Yeah. And then you can take
another bite.
Yeah. And then take like another bite. And see if you notice anything different. Like now I get like a really strong mint flavor. I didn't get that when I just like let it sit there. Do you notice anything different about your chocolate? Oh, sorry.
I just noticed like, what's that?
I was like, you have your mouth full, like enjoy first.
I'll just talk with my mouth open. No, not mindful eating. I can like really notice the texture of the nuts more than when I'm just like chowing down.
Yeah.
And I do typically eat kind of fast.
Yeah.
Really so common. This is really good.
Yeah, it's really common. That's like fast eating is another thing I see quite a bit. And it's another thing that can also have an impact on your gut. Sometimes you might feel like more bloated after eating or find yourself like burping a little bit after you're eating because you're taking in a lot of air when you're eating quickly.
So good.
I know. It's just so interesting to see like compare this type of experience with how you normally eat it. And it just kind of brings to surface like what that food could represent to you. Maybe it's like a special thing, or maybe it's a everyday thing. And I think it just helps us to become more aware of how we're eating, what we're eating, and the narrative that is going through our head when we're eating. So it's like a very kind of holistic approach.
Absolutely. And I think, I mean, just coming back to awareness and like our beliefs about certain things, like you mentioned the chocolate in the middle of the day, like that's so stupid. Why can't I eat it? I mean, I eat chocolate in the middle of the day all the time, but I used to have that story that if I'm the type of person eating chocolate in the middle of the day, I'm fat. Like that was like how I associated it with. So it's so powerful for you're like going back to body image. That's like what it's bringing me back to a lot, just like how we feel about it. And then when we can catch ourselves having those thoughts, like, it's bad that I'm eating this, then we can start to retrain ourselves, reprogram it. Such a powerful message you gave us today. I love it.
Good. I'm glad. Yeah. I really tried to kind of make it all cohesive because I can tell you all day long, like eat this, eat that. But if you have these like narratives running through your head, if you have these thoughts going on, if nothing's going to change. So and change starts from you, not from me. And I think that's what I try to help my clients do is empower them and help bring awareness, because when you have your own awareness, you're going to make the changes you want to see in your life, not what I want to see.
Absolutely. And that's what a great teacher does, is empower their clients and students to start to go off on their own and like really understand everything and all of that. So thank you so much for, is that it for the exercise?
Yeah, that was it.
Okay, cool. I didn't want to interrupt you.
Enjoy your chocolate.
Yes, now I'm going to just chow down. No, mindfully eat the rest of it. Amanda, will you tell everyone about your freebie that you're giving them? Because it's amazing and I'm so excited for them to get it.
Yeah. So actually I have two different ones, and you can tell me if they want both. I'll happily do both. So I actually have a recorded mindful eating audio of what we did, just like kind of like a podcast style. I can send that to you. So if someone wants to, I've done, every time I do this activity, I learn something new. And I've done this, like I said, millions of times. So it's a good one to kind of repeat, and you get to eat. Like, it's the fun part. And
Yeah.
so that's one. And then I can also send you guys a food and mood journal template. So you guys can have an idea of like, okay, how do I record? Like, what do I start recording? So I can start to bring some awareness to how the food choices I'm making and how my gut feels when I make those choices.
Ah, so amazing. That I mean, perfect to go with this conversation. Perfect for so many people that are like trying to embark on this mindfulness journey because it doesn't just, you
Mhm.
know, it's not just for your mind and your spirit, but it's for your body. And
Yeah,
so this is so perfect. Thank you so much for coming on.
thank
Um,
you.
I'll share all your links on the landing page with everyone so that they can find you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.